Halo Wars 2, the sequel to 2009's best-selling console RTS Halo Wars, sees the return of Captain Cutter and his UNSC ship, the Spirit of Fire. The game is set 28 years after the original, and the crew of the ship have been awoken from cryosleep thanks to the ship's close proximity to and collision course with a strange installation floating in the darkness of space. Veterans of the Halo franchise will immediately recognize this as Installation 00, most commonly known as the Ark. A major location in the story of Halo 3 and the birthplace of the Halo rings, the Ark will once again serve the story of a Halo game as the setting of the Halo Wars 2 campaign and multiplayer modes. I was recently flown to London to have a look at Halo Wars 2 and play it for a few hours. I had some time with the campaign, the multiplayer, Blitz mode, and Blitz Firefight. Today, I'd like to talk to you about my experiences with these modes and give you some insight into what you can expect from the sequel to a much-loved console RTS. During my time with the Halo Wars 2 campaign, I got to play the first 3 missions. Mission 1 is very much like a prologue to the game, setting you up with a rough idea of what's ahead of you, establishing where and when you are, and giving you a sense of the dangers ahead, all presented by this new foe, Atriox. Atriox is the head of the Banished, a group that broke away from the Covenant during the war. Now, without spoiling anything, I do want to say that during my short time with this game, Atriox became one of my favorite antagonists in recent years, purely because of his origin story. He's not just evil for the sake of being evil. The source for Atriox's rage and fury are clearly presented to you early in the game via a brilliant cutscene, which was once again created by the brilliant Blur Studios. Mission 2 felt like a good extension of Mission 1, further introducing you to the mechanics of the game and the world that you're in. It's Mission 3 that really sets itself up as something a little bit different from its predecessors, both in a good way and a slightly concerning way. Mission 3, titled Ascension, involves capturing control points and holding them for a period of time in order to secure victory. This is also the basic premise of the Domination mode in multiplayer. Don't get me wrong, this mission was a lot of fun to play, but some minor alarm bells were set off when I realized what was going on. Halo Reach got some flack when it completely cut and pasted areas from the campaign into the multiplayer, and whilst this mission doesn't take the area itself, it does basically take a mode from multiplayer, and I'll be honest, that is a small gripe and not something that I imagine is going to massively impact the campaign, but it was still something that I noticed fairly immediately. Based on what I played, the campaign feels like a great next step from the original Halo Wars. There's a brilliant, engaging story, the gameplay is fun, and it doesn't expect the world from you straight from the first mission. There's also a potential reference to the Silent Cartographer from Halo Combat Evolved right at the beginning of Mission 3, which, as a huge fan of that mission, the Silent Cartographer, was pretty neat. Overall, Halo Wars 2 presents its story and its campaign in a beautiful way through both the Blur cutscenes and the in-game chatter, and not to mention, of course, the gameplay itself. And I am certainly keen to see where it's all going and how it all concludes. Over the course of the Halo Wars 2 preview event, I was able to play some Team Deathmatch and Domination across 2 different maps. And oh my god! They were a lot of fun to play. We ran with a 3v3 setup with one team sat on one side of a desk and the other facing them. My team had me playing Captain Cutter with UNSC troops, one player as Atriox with his Banished troops, and one playing Shipmaster with fairly regular Covenant troops. The enemy team had a similar setup, although I can't for the life of me remember exactly what it was. But despite that, I keenly remember playing the game quite slowly, letting my teammates chip away at the enemy as they got close, taking some power nodes across the map and defending our nodes as the enemy tried to take them away. Eventually, I built up the tech and got myself an army of Hornet aircraft and Scorpion tanks, with some sniper marines just to pick off some stragglers, and then I pushed across the map. At the same time, one of the enemy players pushed towards an allied base with everything he had, and at this point, I knew I had an opportunity to take him out. I redirected all of my units towards his base, and in a moment of pure destruction, he was out of the game before he even realized. It turns out that this was the guy sat opposite me, who was now sitting laughing at the destruction being caused by my units and my teammates' units. From there, my entire team grouped up and pushed across to the remaining enemy bases, wiping them out one by one with everything we had, including a Scarab tank, which is a fearsome ultimate unit. We won that game. And as I looked around at my teammates and at my foes, everyone was laughing and smiling at what had just happened, and I knew right there that Halo Wars 2 multiplayer had got it completely right. It's accessible enough for players to pick it up and learn the ropes, and there's depth enough for the veterans to learn a new trick here or there, but most importantly, it's so much fun to play. Domination wound up being a similar kind of stomp in the end, my team pushing hard on the points and holding them until we had won, and even at that point, everyone was still smiling. Now, I'm by no means a traditional fan of RTS multiplayer, but I cannot wait to jump in to more of what Halo Wars 2 has to offer. Now, this is a curveball. Blitz mode is Creative Assembly's twist on the RTS formula, and oh boy, is it a twist. You play a game of what's basically domination, but it's on a much smaller scale. Instead of managing resources and tech, you're going to begin at one base with a handful of units based on the commander that you've chosen to roll with, and a small amount of points allowing you to call in more units. The twist is that any units you want in the future are picked via cards that are in your current deck, and the points to call them in can be earned over time or picked up via drops across the map. Yes, this mode includes a fairly interesting deck building element not unlike that of a collectible card game, such as Hearthstone. We were given 6 gold packs to open before we were sent off to build our own decks for use against the same players we had been up against in regular multiplayer. I built a relatively balanced deck for Captain Cutter with a ever so slight bias towards mid-tier units such as the Hornet. We jumped into a game and it was over within 2 minutes. Remember when I said that Blitz mode was a twist on the RTS formula? I didn't just mean in terms of the setup and the gameplay, I meant in terms of how long games can last. And it's a really good feeling. It's nice to know that Halo Wars 2 is a game that you're going to be able to pick up and play in that spare 5 minutes you have before you need to go somewhere. Or, if you have time, you could just sink hours upon hours into it if you so desired. Blitz mode is going to be an interesting beast to watch when this game launches, because it's going to create so much chatter around the deck building element alone. Which combination of units works best? Which commander has the best units? Personally, I just can't wait to see this whole thing kick off when the game launches. Much like Blitz before it, Blitz Firefight involves pitting your deck, and possibly the decks of your friends, against the enemy whilst trying to hold 3 positions on the map. The twist here is that the enemy is never-ending and is AI controlled, and that it increases in difficulty the longer the game goes on. In my first game, I managed to last until wave 14 before being obliterated, which the devs told me was actually very good for my first time playing the mode, one of them saying that the best he'd managed was wave 23. Blitz Firefight is certainly an interesting mode to say the least. Whilst playing it, I didn't have much time to play it, but whilst playing it, I felt the same urge to fight harder and reach higher waves that I feel whenever I play Call of Duty's Zombies mode. And that's a curious feeling to have whilst playing an RTS, and I am not at all complaining. I honestly can't wait to jump into Blitz Firefight with some friends later down the line just to see how far we can go and how well we can tune our decks to bounce off of each other. In conclusion, Halo Wars 2 has something for everyone, and it seems to do that very, very well. The campaign is there for those that want the story and want a continuation of the first game. The multiplayer is a bunch of fun for everyone with its easy to learn, difficult to master gameplay. And Blitz mode is something completely out of left field that I think is going to hook people in a way that they didn't expect from an RTS, let alone a console RTS. Personally, I am incredibly excited for Halo Wars 2. I cannot wait for the Blitz beta to start on January 20th, 2017, and I especially cannot wait to have a copy of my own when it finally launches. I don't do review scores, but if I did, Halo Wars 2 would be pretty high up there. Thanks for watching.